another thing is that even though my journey wasn't what I had thought it would be, very far from what I thought it would be, I am one of the lucky ones. I am able to pick up my child from daycare. I am able to say that I was able to find another surrogate who was willing to carry another sibling for me. So even though I've had all this horrible stuff happen to me and it's not fair and it'll never be fair and I'll never stop grieving it, I will grieve this for the rest of my life. This will live on with me for the rest of my life. I can move forward knowing that I am one of the lucky ones. My journey could have been very, very different. My life could have been very, very different. And for example, like I say this all the time, I got to keep my ovaries, which is a miracle. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, especially people that have had cancer.
Welcome to my fertility podcast, Superhumans, the show that brings you expert insights, personal stories, and the latest in fertility care all in one place.
Whether you're starting your fertility journey, navigating challenges, or just exploring your options, we're here to empower you with knowledge, support, and hope.
Join us as we dive deep into topics that matter most, from IVF and fertility treatments to mental health and wellness.
I'm Dr. Mavis Garcia.
And I'm Dr. Wise. We're two of the fertility specialists at Markham Fertility Centre in Markham, Ontario, Canada. Think of us as your sisters in all things fertility. Let's demystify the world of fertility together. Today, we welcome to the show Marisa Bernardo. Marisa is an intended mother, cancer survivor, and surrogacy educator and advocate. Following a battle with cancer that took away her ability to become pregnant, she took on a surrogacy journey in the pursuit of motherhood. Along the way, she became an absolute pillar of the community, sharing her journey online with millions of people. As more and more intended parents began to voice to her that they wanted accessible A to Z surrogacy support, Marisa saw a gap in the industry, and from there, Defining Journeys was born. Marisa is the founder of Defining Journeys, which, interestingly enough, was named in part for her miracle baby, DJ, where she answers the questions many IPs ask themselves. Is there one space I can go to for support from my earliest surrogacy questions to matching all the way through to the postpartum phase? Focus squarely on financially and geographically accessible support, intended parents on independent and agency journeys are welcome for both group and one-on-one coaching on a variety of topics. You can follow Marisa and Defining Journeys on Instagram at Defining Journeys.
Welcome, Marisa. We've been talking about having you for a little while, and finally you are here. We are grateful to have you. So let's start with that. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your journey and all the little pieces that led to you sharing your afternoon on a hot summer day in July of 2025 with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful that you guys wanted me on your podcast. Your podcast is really one of the pillars of the podcast fertility community. I think it's so great to have resources like this for people that need it in a moment of need or when you need to do research. So I'm very, very grateful to be on this platform. I appreciate it. And of course, with both of you, makes it even better. My journey is a long one. I'm going to try to make it shorter and get to the point. But basically, my name is Marisa. I am the founder of Defining Journeys, and this was all born because of my long journey to parenthood. I obviously never thought that this was going to be the way I became a parent, but in 2018, if we go back to the beginning, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And because of this cervical cancer, we needed to do a fertility preserving surgery called a radical trachelectomy. The radical trachelectomy did not go as well as hoped, and they kind of botched the surgery a little bit. And so I never got a period back once the surgery was over. And a year later, I was sent to a fertility doctor. The fertility doctor told me that they weren't able to access my uterus because at the end of the surgery, they put something called a cerclage, which is to hold the space tight so that if I were to get pregnant, the fetus couldn't fall through and I wouldn't have incompetent cervix. but it was not done properly. And so I needed to remove this before I could do anything. Long story short, a bunch of surgeries later to try and correct all the other surgeries, I found myself ready to start IVF. This was all during COVID, and I was able to do an egg retrieval. I got 7 embryos. I was told I didn't need to test them because I was young. This was at my fertility clinic. And when I went in for embryo transfer, they could not get into my uterus. And so that was devastating. I didn't understand what had happened since I had just gone through 5 surgeries to be able to access my uterus. The last surgery, which was awful, it was by accident, they cut my ureter, which is the tube that goes from your kidney to your bladder. So I had to have a stent placed for about 5 months before I could do anything. And that's where they were supposed to put a little Foley balloon catheter to be able to hold the space open in my uterus because I don't have a cervix. And they forgot because the surgery was so hectic, I guess, with that emergency. So a surgery that essentially had to be 1 hour ended up being almost 6 because of that emergency. So then from there, it was a long road of, okay, let's try to put you under conscious sedation at the fertility clinic. We'll bring in different specialists to see if we can find a path to get in there. I did 7 of those and each one was unsuccessful. They brought specialists in, they brought the surgeons that did my surgery, the different fertility doctors, and none of them were able to find a canal into my uterus. So at that point, seeing my oncologist at Princess Margaret, she recommended I go see Dr. Glass at Crave Fertility, who is kind of like an oncology guru, and she's dealt with people that have had my surgery many times. So I go in and I see her, and she tells me that she wanted to do a procedure called the hysteroscopy, which I'm sure most people listening to this right now know what that is. And she said she could probably get in. And of course, I didn't believe her because, I've had 7 procedures to try to get in. But we went in for the hysteroscopy and she was able to get in within 2 minutes. And I guess that's what you get when you have experience with certain things, right?
Mhm.
But what she found when she got in was not good. My uterus was completely scarred. I had severe Asherman syndrome. My uterus was also very, very small. So they removed a lot of my uterus every time they went in. And they never told me that they had done that. They just kept telling me, oh, we cleaned it up. We cleaned it up. So my uterus was extremely small. And so Dr. Glass kind of told me, you can try to do an embryo transfer. It would take many, many procedures to try and clean up your uterus. You would have to get a period to do all of this because I wasn't getting periods because of my Asherman's. And so the chances are you're not going to be able to carry safely. If by some miracle you get pregnant, you probably will miscarry and it won't be safe for you or either the baby because every time you need a procedure, we have to go in laparoscopically because it's not feasible to go in vaginally
Right.
each time and weaken the cerclage.
Right.
So that was the end of my fertility journey in terms of thinking I was able to carry. That's when my surrogacy journey began because that's what Dr. Glass told me would have been the safest route for me and whatever future baby I could have. And so we began to enter the surrogacy world, which is a beast for somebody that has no idea what surrogacy is. It's very overwhelming, it's scary. There's a lot of information out there, but not always the information that you actually need. And of course, surrogacy is also an industry. And so there's a lot of money involved everywhere you go in terms of the journey to get to surrogacy. And so it was very confusing. I was very overwhelmed. And what really saved me on my surrogacy journey was community. I was a very private person. I didn't have social media at all. And so speaking to one of my sister's friends, she told me, you create a Facebook account, go on all the social media, join all the groups, and through a sponsored post by an agency, that's where I found my first surrogate. And this was like fresh. I was probably on Facebook for a day and I found this sponsored post and I'm like, man, it's meant to be. And I attacked it. And unfortunately, that journey was not very productive. It did not end well. I spent a lot of money and my embryos, we did 2 transfers and then we did find out that the surrogate would have not really been fit to carry as we had first thought. So that was disappointing. And so at that point, I didn't know what to do, but I turned to my community that I had kind of began to chat with during my first journey. And so through Instagram, I met my second surrogate. And I'm so fortunate that that journey resulted in my son, who is now in daycare, which is great. Of course, like it was an independent journey, lots involved, but I learned a lot through that journey. And through that journey, I think is where I thought, I'm an intended parent. There's not a lot out there for intended parents. There's almost nothing out there for intended parents by an intended parent. And it's just, when I was doing it, I wanted certain guidance and there was nowhere to get that guidance. And so that's where Defining Journeys was born. And I thought, I am going to give intended parents affordable, ethical, emotionally, logistically supportive care for anybody that's going through a surrogacy journey or a fertility journey, because that's what I wanted. And so now here I am doing this. And on my third surrogacy journey, we're currently 20 weeks pregnant with our second child. And, day by day, everything's going well, but still day by day because that's what fertility is. And we're very excited to welcome them at the end of this year. And I am very excited to continue my work with intended parents and surrogates. And actually, I just became registered with the College of Social Workers, which is great. So here comes more affordable care for infertiles and people pursuing surrogacy journeys. And so I'm very excited to just continue to be in the community, even though my own fertility journey will be ending at the end of this year.
Wow, that is quite a story. You have lived through cancer, surgery, failed transfers, failed surrogacy, 3 different surrogacy journeys, now expecting. That's a lot that you've had to deal with in order to build your family. And what a way to turn your pain into something that adds value to other people going through something similar. Good for you.
Thank you.
And we're so excited for you
Thank
for this upcoming year and all the things that it's going to bring. It sounds absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So, you mentioned Defining Journeys, of course. Tell us about Defining Journeys. What's the mission? What kind of services are you providing? What kind of clients, let's say, are you seeing?
Yeah, so Defining Journeys started as just kind of guiding intended parents at the beginning of their journey. Like, what do I do? I need to pursue surrogacy. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I see? It was kind of like, I will give you all the information you need in like a 3-hour session. And that's kind of evolved now. I'm doing more counseling and I'm counseling from the beginning to the end of your journey from A to Z. So we start off, if you've never looked into surrogacy before, we start off with a pretty hefty long appointment of just you and me sitting down and chatting about everything. You get all the information, all the legal documents, everything that you need to be successful on your journey, and then kind of help with what every intended parent needs, which is how to match. Because it's one thing to know how to do surrogacy, but it's another thing to know, well, where do I find my match? And without a match, you're not really on a surrogacy journey, right? So for me, with my experiences, I think I've learned that it's also not about just matching. It's about finding the right match for you. And of course, things always happen. They always can happen. But doing the legwork and getting all the research and information and education you can before starting will help you have the smoothest journey possible and find the right match. So that's kind of where it started. And now that I am a registered social worker, I will be providing therapy and counseling for people with infertility, for people going through surrogacy journeys, but also for people with chronic and life altering health issues, diseases, because I feel like with my background in cancer, not only did I have to deal with cancer and everything that comes with a cancer diagnosis, but I also had to deal with infertility. And really, I don't know what my journey would have been if I didn't have cancer. I don't know if I would have been infertile. I don't know if my eggs would have been great. I don't know if my uterus would have been great. And it's always that kind of thought in my mind, what did cancer take away from me? You know, sometimes you have unexplained infertility and you don't know, but a lot of the times you have infertility because of a certain health condition or health issue. And it's not like you're just dealing with that health condition and health issue, you're dealing with what that took away from your life as well. And so that's very, very important to me to kind of help people along that journey because I'm still living it. I still have to go through cancer testing. I still have to very much live my life as a cancer survivor, but I also have to deal with the infertility side and the fact that I didn't get to carry my own children. And so it's a very involved process. And I just want to kind of help people walk through that journey with them as well. So,
Mhm.
all the stuff, grief, loss, in a different way, you know, there's lots of grief and loss in fertility. And I think that's also very taboo because when you're in it, you're like, okay, I have a day and like now I need to go back to the drawing board and I need to figure out a new plan and I need to figure out when my next transfer is or when my next retrieval is. And you need to go through the motions. You need to go through to get to the other side, right? And I just came to a point where I didn't go through it and I exploded one day, and you just can't do that. You have to go through the motions as you're in it to be able to come out on the other side surviving. So, yeah, that's my mission. I'm kind of here to help you survive and get to the other side of your defining journey, whichever way you get there. It could be your fertility journey, it could be your health journey, it could be your surrogacy journey. That's what I do.
That's great. And I'm glad that you clarified that because I thought that you only work with intended parents. But now that you're mentioning that you're explaining that you've got your social work certification, then you can do implications counseling for third party and any
Yep.
other type of fertility related counseling. So that's great. That's good to know. So you mentioned, Marisa, that your first surrogacy journey was through a Facebook ad, and
Mhm.
then that didn't work out, and then you got a second and now a third. So your third surrogacy journey is different from your second? Like it's a different
Yeah, it's a
surrogate?
different
Okay.
surrogate. Yep.
Okay. So can you talk about how you managed the second and the third time? And if you can talk about what are the different ways that people can match with a surrogate?
Absolutely. The first time was through a sponsored ad by an agency. So, agency is a way that people can match in Canada, an agency assisted journey. The second time, I had a profile on Instagram, and I was at that point after my first journey did not go the way I planned. I was kind of trying to make community. So, I was talking to intended parents, I was talking to surrogates, just kind of like asking general questions. And I ended up asking a surrogate a question based on something she was saying. And then that's how we ended up connecting. We ended up speaking, and that's how we ended up matching. And my current surrogate right now, we actually met when I started my Instagram. She was on her own journey. I was on my own journey. And so we never obviously matched at that time because we were on our own respective journeys, but we never stopped chatting the whole time. So she was with me throughout my whole first journey where my son came, we chatted, I supported her on her journey, she supported me on my journey. And then after my son was born, she was done her first journey. And so I think it was like 6, 7 months, something like that, don't quote me, after my son was born. And, you know, she kind of approached me one day. We were chatting. Are you thinking about doing another journey? And I said, yes. And we just started kind of mutually talking about maybe we should talk about doing a journey together. And that's really, really special because we knew each other for a while before. So we already knew kind of what we expected out of a journey, our quirks. We were kind of already friends through social media. We had met a couple of times. before we started the journey, right? So it's kind of nice to have that relationship. Not all journeys are like that, and that is okay. Some people meet and chat for a couple of months before matching. In my experience, agencies match people, or when they match via an agency, they match pretty quickly. So it could be anywhere from like a few days to a couple of weeks. When you're matching independently, there's a little bit more kind of control. So when you match independently, if you want to chat for a few months before, that's okay. You can do that. You can establish a relationship. And so if you go agency versus independently, you kind of are matching the same way because agencies are also using social media for matching. But that's kind of the biggest way to match right now is social media. And when I say social media, we're not just talking about Instagram viral videos or TikTok viral videos. We're also talking about the original way, which is Facebook groups, surrogacy groups, posting places where you would not think to post, like a buy nothing group or a buy and sell group, asking the admin if you could please post a little blurb searching for a surrogate in those groups. That's very beneficial. And also tapping into your own network. I think a lot of intended parents are kind of scared when they begin and they don't know what to do. And, now they have to come out and blast their story online to find a chance to become a parent. But I will tell you that telling your network and asking them to share for you helps so many people. And it's not like you're asking people, hey, can you be my surrogate? It's just saying, this is our situation. This is where we are right now. If you wouldn't mind sharing to see if there's anybody within your network that could possibly be a connection for us, that would be great. And you have to think about it, if you have, let's just say 100 friends on Facebook and you post that you're looking for a surrogate on your own Facebook and you ask people to share, and let's say 50 people share with their network and they each have 100 followers. Can you imagine how many people are going to see that you're looking for a surrogate? Right? So it's just about putting yourself out there, expanding who you're kind of sharing with. It's not just about sharing in the surrogacy groups on Facebook. It's not just about doing reels on Instagram that the community is going to see. It's about expanding and thinking outside the box. How can I get more eyeballs on the fact that I need a surrogate, in hopes that somebody will see it, connect with your story, and reach out to you? And it happens all the time. A lot of people I know have matched within the surrogacy community, but a lot of people that I know have matched outside of the surrogacy community with people that didn't even, think about the fact that they were going to see somebody, like a post about somebody searching for a surrogate at that moment. And they saw it and they're like, oh, I've always thought about this. Maybe I'll message them and see, what it's about. And so it's very, very important if you can be a little bit public, semi-public, even with your network, just with your people, do that, because many great matches come from that way. And then you have just the traditional social media, Facebook groups, Instagram, TikTok is a little bit of a rising star right now. So just put yourself out there as much as you can to the level of your comfortability. You don't have to dance, I promise. You don't have to make all these dancing videos. You don't have to wear funny hats. You just have to be a little bit vulnerable and you'll find your match.
That's such an interesting point, actually, because I think as someone who sees patients, let's say, where maybe we are broaching the subject of surrogacy potentially for the first time, and they're like, where do I start? Where do I look? Many people are actually quite surprised that social media and sort of social network, I'm going to call it social networking, encompassing social media and sort of tapping into your own social networks, that it is such a good way to find potential surrogates. It's increasingly popular. But you're right. I find that many patients are in a similar sort of situation yourself when you started. You mentioned that, you were a private person when all of this began, that you weren't on all of those TikToks, Instagrams, whatever. But I'm curious, how did somebody convince you to get started with those things?
I think for me, it was when I had no idea what surrogacy was, and my sister's friend told me, "Oh, you do this or you bust. Like, you have to
Yeah.
you kind of have to just do it. You have to jump into it. And when I started, I wasn't public. I had like one of those Finstas, one of those fake Instagram accounts. Not fake, but I didn't have a picture of myself. I just had a name, and I said like in my bio was like intended mom looking for a surrogate. And I just started connecting with people. I do have to say the surrogacy community and the infertility community in general on social media, especially Instagram, is wonderful. You can message anybody, any intended mom, any surrogate, any person that has an infertility account, and just message them and say like, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I would love to connect and like make a friend, and we will all embrace you because we've been in your shoes," right? And that's kind of what I did. I made friends that way. And then in my second surrogacy journey, I was kind of approached with the idea of documenting the journey, which I was okay with documenting to the style where I document now. And it kind of just evolved from there. I have my boundaries as well. I don't share about any other personal life things on my account. It's just fertility related things to kind of help the next person who logs on and doesn't know what to do and sees something like that and says, okay, there might be a chance for me. This was a little bit controversial after I finished my second journey. A lot of people were like, well, why aren't you sharing your child that you had via surrogacy on Instagram? And it's because that's not what my account is about. I might share something here and there quickly, but my account is not a motherhood account. My account is for people that are in the thick of it, who are looking for support or looking for a little bit of a glimmer of hope, and even looking for, some support if they decide not to pursue a journey anymore because they're done. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's okay. And I think that motivated me to kind of continue and post and be present on there. The fact that when I needed the help and I needed the support, there were so many people out there to support me. So many friends that I've made through the Instagram community that I see on a regular basis in person. So many people that have walked through this journey with me. That motivated me to keep going because I felt like I needed to do that for somebody else. I needed to kind of pay it forward and continue this public account that I had. My motivation was to be there for people like people were there for me, and to be, if you need a little bit of support one day and you don't feel like talking to anybody, come and look at one of my posts. Most things are like, don't feel bad. We were in your shoes. You have support. And yeah, that's kind of the community that I wanted to foster with my social media.
And I have to say, being a fertility doctor and seeing the patients that are going through not just surrogacy, but miscarriages or unexplained infertility, any part of it, of course, we try to provide support, but we're limited. And there's nothing like having somebody that has been in their shoes, Because I always ask, how are you getting support? How are you coping? And a lot of patients tell me, I connected to you on Instagram, or Bianca from my fertility journey, or Alexa Riley, who was also on the podcast. And there's so many people who are just out there and they're sharing and they're open. And Renee Higgins as well from My Baby Plan. And it's amazing. All of you guys are really, really helping patients, and you are even helping people that you might never know you were helping, because I'm the one who gets there, who's like, I saw a post, so I saw this from this person and that person. And that's why I'm here with this concept and this idea. And I would have never known if I haven't heard this person say it. And of course, I can't reach that back because of patient confidentiality. So there are lots of instances like that of people who come to me through those connections that have gotten their baby because they saw a reel that inspires something in them to reach out and ask a different question in a different way. And this is the reason they're parents today. So it's incredibly powerful. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. But you know what also is incredibly powerful? A doctor with good bedside manner. And that's all I hear about Markham Fertility. And that's why I love what you guys do, because you're right. As doctors, you are limited. You have such a short time. You have your patients. You need to create a plan and follow through with the plan. But it's very, very nice when you go in to see your doctor and you get a emotional hug from your doctor, and you feel like they're on your team and they're ready to support you. And I feel like I've heard nothing but good things about Markham and the physicians at Markham and you guys. And it's just like, we're not a number. And that
Mm.
goes a long way, knowing that we have this health journey, we're on this fertility journey, but we're not just a number, we're a human and a patient and we have feelings. So that goes a long way too. So thank you very much for that.
Science is obviously a big piece of the puzzle that we have to follow it, but
Mhm.
that's not everything. Science isn't going to solve every problem. And there is so much about the science that we don't know. Our secret sauce, and I think the key to our success is the TLC, is the support that we provide the patients.
Yeah.
We just looked at our statistics and we were looking at our live birth rate being very good, so a low miscarriage rate. And the staff were asking, what's that about? And I mean, I don't have the scientific data to say, when you hold hands, when you hug people, then everything is okay. I don't have that. But I have been doing this for long enough time to believe in my core that that's important and that matters. And that when people feel like they're not fighting against their healthcare team and that they're actually part of the team, something happens inside. And I don't know the
Absolutely.
biology of it, I don't know the genetics of it, but something happens. And I think most of the time that leads to good outcomes. But even when it doesn't, I always say we can help everybody. We cannot
Yeah.
give everybody the outcome of holding a baby in their hands. My goal is to make sure that every single patient in our care feels like I got my chance. I was there. I was not a number. I was important. And I got the best care that I could get for the goal that I had,
Yeah.
however long or short your journey is.
It does go a long way. It's one thing to kind of be in this health journey because that's what infertility is. It's a health condition and feel unsupported and feel like you're fighting and like every appointment is dreadful because I'm seeing a doctor who's just like next, next, quick, quick, quick. Or you go in, you see your doctor that you like, that you know is trying their best to support you, and you know you're going to be met with love, emotional support, care, and really just an interest in you as a human and not just as that number. So it's very, very important. And I love what you said, the secret sauce. I love I love the secret sauce thing. I love Markham's secret sauce. Keep it going.
Thank you very much for all of those incredibly kind words. Brings a big smile to my face, which obviously our listeners can't see right now. It's absolutely true. I think that every person on someone's fertility journey, it takes a village. And, what they say that about raising a child, it takes a village to sometimes get to the point of raising a
Yeah.
child too. Feels like even more so sometimes. And so when a patient is surrounded by people who care, again, not just as the physicians, but also all of those other components of the journey, like someone like yourself as a social worker or somebody who's helping them through counseling them around surrogacy journey or other things, fertility lawyers as well, people
Yep.
who are all passionate about what they do, the nurses, the embryologists, et cetera. It's everyone's job. It's everyone's role to
Yep.
provide that level of care and hope and love, for lack of a better word, to really give people the best experience.
Yeah.
When patients are thinking about surrogacy,
Yep.
they want to know, what is it like, right? What was your experience of going through that surrogacy journey? What was your partner's experience of going through that surrogacy journey, like emotionally, logistically?
I think the moment I heard, actually, we both heard, myself and my partner, we both heard, yeah, I would consider finding a surrogate. And Dom's reaction was, ha ha ha. And I said, what is that? And he's like, what do you mean find a surrogate? Like, what? Like somebody else carrying our baby? How does that work? That he's like, that's some science stuff that I don't understand. And we have male factor as well. We have male factor infertility. So like we have a bunch of whammies throughout the whole journey. He was like, okay, like we can tackle this, we can tackle that. But as soon as Dr. Glass said surrogacy, that's when he like stopped for a second. He's like, whoa, what is surrogacy? I had heard of surrogacy before. I had some insight into what surrogacy was, but he didn't. Like he was like, I've
And for
watched.
the record, his
Yeah.
reaction, not that unusual.
No, no, I've
Yeah.
heard this a lot.
Not that
Yeah.
unusual at all, right?
Yeah, and so I think it was like shock, like, what do you mean a surrogate? Because his background in surrogacy was the movies that you see, and like surrogacy is not portrayed very nicely in a lot of movies. And he's a big Saturday Night Live fan. And when we got home, he's like, "Isn't that movie Baby Mama? That movie is about surrogacy." He's like, "Is that what?" And I'm like, that is not even, it doesn't even end up being a surrogacy pregnancy, a real surrogacy pregnancy. So get Amy Poehler and Tina Fey out of your
Yeah.
mind. But for me, I grieve hard in a very short amount of time, the amount that I need to grieve to move forward. I'm still grieving not being able to carry. I think it's something that I'm going to grieve for the rest of my life, even though I have my child here, even though I have another one on the way. It's something that I always dreamed of experiencing since I was a little girl. Like, people would ask me, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And I would say, "I want to be a mommy." But I was able to grieve enough for a few days. And I said, "Okay, I'm done wallowing. I need to move forward and kind of compartmentalize my grief. I'm going to keep grieving, but I'm also going to take steps." And so I was kind of like, "I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that." And Dom was like, "I don't know what to do." And he was basically like, "I will support you in whatever way I can. You just have to guide me because I don't know the first thing about any of this." And so usually during the whole fertility journey, the whole health journey, I took the reins just because I wanted to take the reins. That's how I wanted to take control. And I find that's pretty common for a lot of people that I speak to, because a lot of the treatments are being done on the female partner. If there is a female and male partner, the female usually takes hold of the actual fertility journey. And so I started talking to people. That's how I found out, go on the surrogacy groups on Facebook. And that's how I started my journey. But it was very, very emotionally charged. I was devastated. I was doing the things I needed to do to move forward and get to where I wanted to be. But I was devastated. I was so hurt. I was grieving every second. And as much as I wanted, I always had a little bit of a thought in my mind, like, okay, like, maybe I'll try the first baby like this, but maybe after the first baby, I can try to carry myself, or I can see if my uterus fixed itself. And it never happened, obviously, but it's always that hope. I always had hope, a little bit of hope, and then kind of eyes towards the end goal, and then my grieving on this side. So Dom was great. He was supportive in whatever I needed. Of course, there's a lot of aspects to a surrogacy journey. There's the emotional part, there's finding a surrogate. There's also a massive financial burden of surrogacy. It's very, very expensive. And so Dom is the numbers guy. And so that's kind of how we split the journey. Like, you budget, you do the numbers, I do the legwork of surrogacy, how to find a surrogate, getting all the information, and we will bring our things to the table and we'll share our findings, and then we'll move forward that way. So that's kind of worked very well for us. What worked very well for us as well is therapy. I highly, 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 highly recommend therapy. It was so important in our journey, even when we didn't realize that we were building resentment towards each other during the journeys, or that we were struggling in certain ways. We would go to these therapy sessions and it would come out, and it was like, "Well, I don't want to put this extra burden on you." And he would say, "Well, I don't want to put this extra burden on you." And it was kind of like we needed that space to walk through it. Or if we were emotional or sad or we were anxious about something, we didn't want to bother each other with those. And so those therapy sessions helped us walk through that and helped give us the tools to, realize that we're both in this and that it's okay to bother each other with it, because we're probably feeling different emotions for male and female, but similar emotions at the same time. And that's how we got through it. And we still go to therapy, and I still go to therapy on my own. I think therapy is something that I will never stop doing. It's been an essential piece in my survival guide during cancer, during fertility, during surrogacy. And I highly, highly recommend to find somebody that you connect with, because you need that. You need that vent. Friends that don't go through it don't understand. And even friends that go through it, you'll have similar emotions, but you'll never have the same emotions, the exact same emotions. You won't, because everybody's different and everybody processes things differently. So therapy, 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 therapy. And if possible, therapy by somebody that has walked similar shoes before. So a health journey, an infertility journey, a surrogacy journey as an intended parent. Very, very important in my opinion.
I would second that as well. When I was going through my own fertility journey, I've never been in therapy ever in my life. And I remember thinking, I'm a fertility doctor. I need IVF. I've done IVF. Like, what's the therapy going to do? I don't understand. But I was so down that I was like, I need help. So I went to a therapist and worked with her throughout my journey. And it was like life changing. So I became a big convert into the importance of therapy, and I recommend it to all my patients. And you're right, it has to be the right fit. Just like in anything else,
Yeah.
it has to be the right fit. If the first one doesn't work out, doesn't mean therapy in general is not for you. It might not just be the right
Yes.
fit and you need to find somebody else. So yeah, absolutely. We interviewed Dara in the podcast, who's an amazing
Yeah.
therapist who has lots of experience, has gone through her own surrogacy as an intended parent. We talked about a lot of the coping skills. And one of the things that she said, which kind of blows me away still, is the fact that infertility, and I think her words is, having a child doesn't cure infertility. Having a child solves for not having a child, but it doesn't cure infertility. And I experienced that because my youngest is 8, my oldest is 12. They're both part of the fertility journey. So I'm like 8 years away, and I completed my family 8 years ago. And I still get triggered, guys. Like, I still sometimes there might be a conversation, there might be something that happens, and the tears pour. And it always surprises me because I'm like, come on, you know.
It's been 8 years.
Get over it.
Yeah.
But I don't think you ever really truly do. And I
No.
think even after you hold that baby in your arms, it's really important. And I didn't know it at the time, but it's really important to really acknowledge that everything that happened doesn't magically erase. And you might even need therapy, just like you're saying, after the journey is completed, or after that leg of the journey is completed, and after you have a baby, and after you have a second baby, because these things are gonna keep coming up and they become
Mhm.
a really big part of who you are. And so yeah, therapy for life. I'm agreeing with you. Therapy for life.
Therapy for life. It never goes away. It just evolves and changes with you, right? It's
Mhm,
always part of your story. You can't erase it. You can't forget about it
mhm.
because life will remind you. You
Yeah.
can try. You can forget about it for like an hour and then you'll see something and you'll be like, "Ugh, stupid pregnancy ad on TV. Like what? Look at those people. They sneezed and they got pregnant." And it's that bitterness that stays forever of why me? Why did I have to go through this? And you're right, like, and I'm sure you get triggered because you're around it every single day and you feel what these people have been through, right? So yeah, therapy for life. Big, big, big lover of therapy.
Yeah.
And that's just not about fertility. You alluded to it. It's also about, significant health issues that people experience. I mean, you were a really young woman who had cancer.
Yeah.
Like, that's not supposed to, air quotes, happen.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen to some person that has lived a really bad lifestyle their
Yeah.
whole life, that's older and that
Like,
didn't do everything to be a mom or a dad and wasn't focusing all on this. You're right. You're right. Like, why me
yeah,
and not somebody else? Not that I'm wishing it on anybody else, but
for
why
sure.
me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that my feeling or my sense is that, especially these days, especially for, I mean, I work with women as a gynecologist. So I'm going to say for women or for people who view themselves as women, that women in the millennial generation, especially, we were all brought up with this very specific message. If you work hard enough, you can achieve all the things,
Yep.
which is a great message to a point, to a degree,
Yep.
right? That's great when you're telling this to a young female, be like, okay, study and you're going to get into good schools, then you can have a good job and you're going to have a good life. It's true to some degree, but then there are certain things in this world that they're not effort based.
You
Doesn't
control
matter
them.
how much you try. And fertility is one of them. And then also these kind of like cervical cancer, these really fluky, seemingly fluky illnesses and cancers and terrible, devastating things that happen to young, healthy people, right? And it's so, so jarring. And I find that people really struggle with their identity. They feel guilt, immense guilt. They blame themselves. And then, as the physician, again, I've seen people in a fertility context, it is very, very, very difficult to try and tease apart the idea of like, you did all the right things. I promise you did all the right things. This is not something that you did. This is bad luck for lack of a better understanding of the science, right? Bad luck sounds so,
But it is bad luck.
yeah, I know
Mhm.
it is, but I feel like it sounds like a cop out. And maybe that's my own personal bias, but it's a really tough message to send, right? That yes, you worked so hard to get your uterus to be where you wanted it to be, right? Organize the physician's appointments, going through all the surgeries, all the recoveries, all the things. It was hard work on your part, right?
Yeah. It was a
And
full-time job.
yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it for
Yeah.
sure. And you still didn't get to the place where you wanted to be. And so accepting that is extremely difficult and challenging. And many, many people face that issue across many different situations. So this is all to say that it's not anyone's fault. People should not take it personally, whether it's fertility, infertility, these terrible health things. Yes, okay, this is not Dr. Wise saying that you should all go take up smoking for the record. That's not what it is. It's a balance of things. It's about trying to maximize what you can via lifestyle and all of those things and, doing the treatments and doing the vitamins and everything. But knowing that a large chunk of it is really luck, for lack of a better way to explain it.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of people that I speak to. Like, at some point, you're going to come to a point where you say, like, what else can I do? Because I know I don't need to know you to know that you've done everything. You've
Yeah.
tried all the diets, you've done all the supplements, you've probably been to a naturopath, you've probably done acupuncture, you've probably meditated, even though meditation was probably never in your mind. You have tried everything possible. And if there was something, because we even know like IVF is not a guarantee, science is not a guarantee. If there was one silver bullet that you could take or do or anything to just become pregnant, you would do it. But there's not. Nothing is a guarantee. You can do everything you can and it could still not work. It's very, very sad because people, like you said, blame themselves. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? What more could I do? And sometimes the answer is nothing. There is nothing more that you can do. You have done it all. You've done everything. You need to give yourself some grace because you're going to drive yourself crazy, analyzing, reanalyzing. And this is why we're with professionals. And if we have the help of professionals who do this day in and day out, and we're still not getting the result that we want, it's not that anybody's a failure. You're not a failure. Nothing's wrong with you. It's just, it is what it is. And it's so hard to accept. There's so much guilt involved, but you need to tell yourself that you are doing the best you can and you need to give yourself grace because we are so hard on ourselves as humans. And I always, when I chat with someone that's having a really hard time, I kind of put it into perspective of if you had a friend is the same exact situation and was feeling like you are feeling right now, what would you tell them? And they always say, oh, I would try to support them. I would ask them if they need anything, reassure them that they're doing everything they can, and just try to be there for them because it's not their fault. They obviously didn't want this. And then I look at them and say, well, why can't you do that for yourself? You just told everything to that person, to your friend, that you should be telling to yourself. It's the same situation. And it's not fair that you're beating yourself up for this when you wouldn't do that to somebody else, right?
Marisa, you are a young woman that has gone through a surgery that wasn't, you use the words, it was botched. I wasn't involved in your care then. I'm still not involved in your care now. We should clarify that you're not at this time a Markham Fertility Center patient, but you mentioned it didn't go well. You had multiple surgeries after that. You needed surrogacy. You had a journey that didn't work. Yet you seem to be very positive. You seem to be somebody that, from my perspective, has turned a difficult situation into a mission. And it's easy with everything that you have been through to be in the space of like, life is not fair. Why me? Everything bad happens to me. My prior doctors made a mistake. and anger and resentful and sad and depressed. And you don't seem to be in that space. And I could be wrong, but I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about how, if you were ever in that space, how do you get out of it? Or how do you prevent yourself from spending too much time in that space? And how do you manage to, like you said, move forward, wallow for a little bit, but then move forward and do the things that you need to do?
Thank you for saying that I look positive because I try very hard. Okay, so if there's one thing that I am a huge non-fan of is toxic positivity. I cannot deal with toxic positivity because I just feel like sometimes you need to be in the space of this sucks. And I have those all the time. And some days I'm super happy and super positive, and some days while I'm still on the positive boat, I have a lot of negative feelings and just like, why me? Like, why did this happen? And I get very pensive and like existential. And I ask myself all the time, like, why did this happen? Sometimes I'm chatting with my surrogate, Alicia, who I love. And then I stop to think, like, this person's carrying my baby. I have a baby right now, but it's not here. It's all the way with her. And why? Why is that? And so I think what has kept me going, because I did have a long period of anger. And if I sit in my feelings, they will be angry feelings. I work through it through therapy. I have mantras that I'll say when I'm having a rough time. I have people that I can call. But I think one thing that I always remind myself of is that I'm lucky to be alive, because I could be dead right now if we're being realistic. Like, I had cancer, so I could be dead. We may not be able to have this podcast. So that's one thing. Another thing is that even though my journey wasn't what I had thought it would be, very far from what I thought it would be, I am one of the lucky ones. I am able to pick up my child from daycare. I am able to say that I was able to find another surrogate who was willing to carry another sibling for me. So even though I've had all this horrible stuff happen to me, and it's not fair, and it'll never be fair, and I'll never stop grieving it, I will grieve this for the rest of my life. This will live on with me for the rest of my life. I can move forward knowing that I am one of the lucky ones. My journey could have been very different. My life could have been very different. And for example, like I say this all the time, I got to keep my ovaries, which is a miracle. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, especially people that have had cancer, that have endo. Sometimes you need to take out the ovaries, and then you have to go the route of egg donation or embryo donation. And I'm so fortunate that I was able to keep my ovaries and that I was able to do an egg retrieval. So whenever I'm sulking, I'll let myself sulk because it's a crappy situation. Like, it's not fair. I let myself grieve because it's not fair. But then I'll think, but you know what? No matter what happened, I'm actually lucky. I was able to have a chance at parenthood, and a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people can't. And so that's where I try to bring it back. Not to say that I don't have bad days. I do have bad days. I have days where I'm like, I hate everyone and I hate the world and I hate my body because my body didn't do what it was supposed to do. But then I think of, but my body recovered and my body still, gets up every morning, allows me to live a life. It wasn't the life I imagined, but that's a mental thing for me, right? It wasn't the life I imagined, but I still have a life. And I still, to the core, want to be happy. I want to be a happy person. I want to enjoy my life, and just living in the constant state of being upset and angry just wasn't working for me anymore. And that's when I invoked my tools of therapy. It took me a lot of therapy to get here. And just kind of being in the community has helped me as well. And building that community and talking to other people in the community and helping other people has helped me heal. But like I said, I'll never be healed. And I don't like that toxic positivity. I am very much a realist. And this is my situation. I have a crappy uterus. I wasn't able to carry my baby. I didn't get to experience that, but I have one. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for what I do have, even though I had a very crappy situation and a very crappy journey.
It is crappy.
It is crappy. Yeah.
No, I gotta say, I mean, it's always a balance of emotions, right? That's what makes humans so interesting. It's so complex that you can feel two things at once that seem to be diametrically opposite. To be really grateful for one thing, but to be really upset about something else.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of humanity, really, right? That we can do these two things at once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes up a lot is something that you alluded to as well when you referenced SNL. There are so many misconceptions out there around surrogacy and a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of biases around surrogacy. What have you seen out there? What have you heard? Let's do some myth busting. What are the big ones that you want to scream for the rooftops that are like just not true?
If one more person asks me in my lifetime if my husband and my surrogate had to have sex, will have the baby, I will literally scream. I will scream because
Oh my God.
no, that is
I've
myth.
heard that a lot too. Yeah.
What are you guys thinking? And you know what it is? I think it's the media, it's movies, it's all of that. People are just uneducated, but also who asks questions like that? I'm not going to ask anybody about their sex life. That's just none of my business. But people, when they feel like you're being vulnerable, they feel like they have the right to ask silly questions. So that's one. Another misconception is that there's no way that the baby can be genetically of the intended mom or the intended dad. That's false. There are people that use egg donations, embryo donations, sperm donations, but there are also people that use their own genetics to create embryos, and then those embryos get placed into surrogates, and that's what's called gestational surrogacy. There is traditional surrogacy, but it's not really practiced much anymore. Another extremely taboo misconception is that this is going to harm the baby. This does not harm the baby. A lot of people say, well, do you feel like you're going to bond with your baby? Do you feel like you're going to have difficulty bonding with your baby because you're not carrying it? Excuse me, sir. The baby doesn't know anything when it comes out. The baby only figures out who their people are because these people are caring for them, right? It's all about smell. That's not to say that, they won't recognize the surrogate's voice, that they won't bond with the surrogate, but they'll bond with them on a different level as a surrogate, not as their parent, not as their mom or dad. There are people that give birth to their own babies who have trouble bonding with their children because it's a hard thing to go through. It's a hard thing to be a new parent. It's a hard thing to be a mother and a father. And also, fathers bond with their babies and fathers don't give birth. As far as I know, biologically male people do not give birth to their own babies, but they bond with their babies. People that adopt children bond with their children. So just because I didn't carry my own child, it doesn't mean that I won't bond with my child, that the child won't recognize me as their person, as their parent, as their caregiver. And I think that's a myth, that it's going to harm the baby in some way, or we're taking it away from their mother. And the surrogate is not the mother. The surrogate is the gestational carrier. It's the person that is carrying them for 9 months, and then the baby is given to their parents. So that's a big myth. And I think a lot of intended parents are scared to say, I'm worried about bonding with my child. It's a genuine concern. Like, I didn't give birth to my baby. But what I can say to that is that people that give birth to their babies have the same worries.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're essentially like, you've never been a parent before, or maybe you have, but it's this stranger. You are essentially meeting a stranger, and they're learning what the world is. You're learning what this new world is. And it's an adjustment. I didn't give birth to my son, but I had postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And we just don't talk about that because it's like, how could you have that if you didn't give birth to your son? I had it very severely, and it didn't help. My son had a bunch of health issues when he was born, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it except for my therapist and Dom, because I felt like when I did, people would say, but you wanted this. What do you mean it's hard? You wanted to have a baby. You work so hard. You should be happy. And then I would retreat, but you shouldn't, because yes, you wanted this, but it doesn't mean that it's still easy.
Yeah,
It doesn't
that's
mean
right.
that you don't experience what every other parent experiences. And doesn't mean you can't have thoughts like, oh, I'm not going to bond with my baby, or I don't know if I'm doing this right. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
No one
Nobody
knows.
knows what they're doing. Yeah. So that would be another myth. I think another misconception that people think about surrogacy is that it is this very difficult, unattainable thing. Like, oh my gosh, like you have to be a celebrity to be able to have the resources to have a surrogate. That's false. Very regular people have surrogates. Most people that use surrogates or that work with surrogates is because of a health condition or infertility. It might be different in the world of Hollywood, but if you're needing a surrogate in the normal world, it's because you have tried everything else to have a child. And if you're educated properly and you find your community and you do your research, it is not this big scary thing. It's actually pretty easy if you take it day by day. I'll use Markham as an example because I'm sitting with doctors from Markham Fertility, but Markham Fertility have a donor and third party coordinator, Stephanie. Right now, I love Stephanie. And clinics usually have people that will help you introduce you into this world. Like you're not alone. You're not alone in this. There are people that will help you every step of the way. Stephanie being one of them, she introduces what surrogacy is to you. And most clinics have some of that. So even when you don't know and when you feel desperate, talk to your clinic. Ask them if they have any resources. Literally Google search surrogacy help, surrogacy support in Toronto, in Canada, in Ontario, and you are bound to come up with some support, some resources that will help you along the journey. You're not alone. And I think that's a very big misconception. People just feel like I'm stuck, I'm alone, and I don't know what to do, and this is not attainable. But it is.
Thank you for that, Marisa. I have one final question for you. Your child you mentioned is in daycare, so he's 3 years old. I think you said
Two.
two. He's 2 years old, so he's still little. But
Yep.
I wonder if you thought about how you're going to have the conversation about where they came from when they're older. Do you think they'll have a relationship with their respective surrogates? Do you worry about explaining that? What are your thoughts on that?
I think my answer to how I will talk to him about it is always, often, and openly, because this is part of his journey and it's part of my journey. I kind of have already, like, since birth, I've been reading him books and I've talked to him about it. His response has always been like looking at me and say, snack mama. So clearly he does not understand what I'm saying right now, which is fine. It's obviously not developmentally appropriate right now because he doesn't understand what I'm saying. But I will continue to read the stories. I will continue to tell him his stories. I will show him pictures. And I will do that with whatever children I'm able to have because I think it's important for them to know where they came from, what their story is. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. They will forever be my children. We love them so much and we wanted them so badly that we went to the ends of the earth to get them here. And we were able to find very, very special people to help us on that journey. And I think it's something to be super proud of. And they get to tell their friends that their parents love them extra, extra specially. I fully want them to know who their surrogates are, to be able to speak to them when they want to speak to them, to be able to see them when they want to see them. If they have questions, totally open to answering any of those questions. I do have a background in working with children, child development, and more, as we all know, the research shows that the way to have children accept their story and to feel good about their story and where they came from is to share how they got here, what their story is, whether that's adoption, embryo donation, egg donation, sperm donation. It's just important to tell children who they are, where they came from, what their story is, to ensure that they grow up with feelings of belonging and
Mm.
feelings of honesty and openness. Gone, gone, gone are the days where you wait to tell a child their background story until they're 18. Like, no, no, no. It needs to be often, early, and open. So that is my answer to that. And I'm very, very proud. Like, I will tell anyone, I did not give birth to my child. I love them so much and I wanted them so much that I went to the ends of the earth to get
Yeah.
them here. And I was lucky enough that it worked because some people don't have that luck, unfortunately. But yeah, I will tell anybody. My kid's big. He's very, very tall. Dom is also very tall. He's 6'3". So my kid's big. So all the time I get the question everywhere in the grocery store. Oh my goodness, I'm very petite. The question is, you gave birth to him? All the time, all like without fail,
Yeah.
once, twice a month at least. And my answer is like, actually, no, my uterus doesn't work, but I found somebody else that had a working uterus that wanted to help me and they gave birth to my son. And then they kind of look at me like, oh God, why did I say that? And they just say, wow. And they walk away and I have no shame. And then sometimes it'll spark really interesting and nice conversations. But most of the time, it freaks people out. And I'm very happy because if you're saying things like that to people, you need to get put in your place a little bit. So I have no shame whatsoever. I will tell everyone and their mother that this was our story, and I'm proud of it.
That's incredible. It's really wonderful to see somebody who is so proud of the journey that they've had, but is also open and honest about the fact that it wasn't always great and wonderful and amazing. You know, that we don't have that toxic positivity here with us today, which is fabulous.
Not in the room. No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to tolerate it either. In a way, it makes you a fabulous role model, to be honest, for people who are thinking about surrogacy and then trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to navigate my own personal identity in this world? Like, as an intended parent where, you know, I wasn't the person who was pregnant with my child. That is one of the wonderful things to see out there on social media, to see these different versions of people, how they tackle things and to sort of figure out what your identity could be and how awesome it could be.
Yeah. And no matter what, whether you're a parent via surrogacy, via donation, via adoption, you are the parent that is waking up with them in the middle of the night, that is changing the diapers, that is taking the temperatures of 102 when they're sick. You're the one that's getting sick with them. You are their parent. There's no shame in that. No shame. And sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget that I didn't carry him. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't carry him. Because it's just like, I'm a mom. I'm a mom. I'm a mom via surrogacy, but I'm a mom. So nothing to be ashamed of.
Amazing. So, for people who are listening to this podcast, let's say they are maybe potentially at that point dipping their toe into the pool of surrogacy information in the surrogacy world. What advice would you give someone who is just sort of thinking like, maybe this is what my next step is going to be. Maybe this is the right path for me in my bigger fertility journey.
First thing I would tell you to do is take a breath. This is very hard. You're very overwhelmed right now, and it's a whole new world of letting go in comparison to an IVF journey. So that's step one. Step two, talk to people. You don't have to be public. You don't have to have a public account. Use your own personal accounts. Make a fake account. Type in surrogacy and just start connecting with people. Be honest. Say, I'm looking into surrogacy. I'm very private. Is there any advice you can give me? Trust me, you will get advice. Talk to people, find friends, find community, because those will be the pillars in your journey. Even if you don't talk to them all through your journey, having that at the beginning, while you're in it, at the end, having those people to go to, so important. I would also say do your research. Don't go for the first thing that you find. Find somebody that you mesh well with to support you through the journey. Have a therapist. Speak to lawyers. Speak to your doctors. Do what feels right to you. Don't just do what you think is right. Do what feels right, because you have an intuition for a reason and you need to trust your intuition. You will know what's right for you and what's wrong for you. And so just because things are not working out the way you thought they were or the way you wanted them to, it doesn't mean that you can't trust yourself. So just take everything day by day, give yourself grace, and just start talking to people, start doing research. There is a huge community out there ready with open arms to embrace you and hug you and help you along the way.
That's beautiful. I love that because it's so practical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love
It's not
that.
that
Step by
hard.
step.
It's not that hard. Just like,
Yeah.
come find me. Literally come find me. Come message me and we'll chat if you don't know where to go.
So how do people find you?
I am on Instagram, Defining Journeys, or you can email me at Marissa, Marissa, at definingjourneys.com. My website is definingjourneys.com, and there's tons of places that you can click to contact me. I'm always here to support people, whether it's a message through Instagram or through Facebook or through email. I'm literally one click away, and I've been in your shoes, so I'm here to help and chat if you need me.
Marisa, you walk the walk and talk the talk because you also volunteer for Oasis,
Yes,
right?
yes. I love Oasis.
Yeah.
Oasis is the best. Oasis Fertility Support Network. I'm on the board for them, but I volunteer. I'm a conversation starter. So I do a support group for them. I host Fertility Village Live, which is a live talk show with fertility topics and fertility experts every single Wednesday. I host twice a month. And I love Oasis. It's free support all the time for anybody who's going through an infertility journey, a surrogacy journey. We have support groups once a month, and there's tons of different support groups. And now there's a male fertility support group, which is amazing because it's so needed. I also have a male intended father support group that you can access through my website. So if there's any people that want that male infertility support, but also male intended father support, there's options. There's support everywhere. Oasis is just fantastic, phenomenal. And it's just support by people who get it.
Yeah.
It's not support by random therapists who have never talked to anybody in fertility. It's people who get it, who have been in your shoes, who are leading these support groups, who are leading these support chats. Big fan of Oasis. I know you guys are big fans of Oasis.
No, for sure. We're a big supporter because the work that they do is incredible. So I wanted to make sure that we highlight it in this episode as well. I learned about them through a patient. Yeah, one of my patients is on the board and she told me about it. And I was like, wow.
It's so nice to have somewhere to go when you're having a bad day to run to. And like any of us on the board, any of us conversation starters, if you're having a bad day, just text us or email us or message us on Instagram. Like we'll all be happy to chat outside of our support group day kind of thing.
And it's absolutely free for patients.
Everything is absolutely free. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Very, very helpful, very real and raw conversation that we had. So we're very appreciative for your time and your willingness to give back to the fertility community with your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor being on this podcast. I finally get to say I was on this podcast. I appreciate the great conversation and the vulnerability and sharing, and very, very, very much appreciated.
And that's a wrap for today, Superhumans.
If you're looking to connect, get social with us. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at My Fertility Podcast or visit us online at markandfertility.com. And don't forget, follow, subscribe, and share your favorite episode.
Thanks for listening to My Fertility Podcast and for being a vital part of our community. We know you've got this.
We're signing off until next Tuesday.
If you found this episode of My Fertility Podcast helpful, please take a moment to head over to the review section and leave us your thoughts. Your reviews and comments are incredibly valuable to us and help guide future episodes. We also welcome you to direct your questions to info@myfertilitypodcast.com.
My Fertility Podcast is produced by Rabbit Media Inc. in conjunction with Dr. Garcia and Dr. Weiss.
Music from Mixkit, Life is a Dream by Michael Ramir C.
My Fertility Podcast is not intended to replace any type or variation thereof professional medical, health, or legal advice, nor should the content be taken as medical advice. Please contact your primary healthcare professional regarding any medical questions you may have. The information presented in this podcast is based on the knowledge and understanding of the host at the time of recording. Medical knowledge is constantly evolving, and new research may change the understanding of health-related topics. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we do not guarantee the completeness, accuracy, or timeliness of the content. The views expressed in this podcast by guests are not those of the host or the management. This podcast is not intended to impose any type of discrimination. My Fertility Podcast and its management are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast.